Welcome in, everybody. This is your self-care staffing for Wednesday, April 1st, 2020. I am Lieu. I'm the school social worker in the Manchester City Schools in Manchester, Tennessee. And today I want to talk about an idea that we've alluded to in at least one previous video, maybe a couple. And that is that self-care is not always fun and enjoyable. That sometimes there are tasks you don't like, but you know they're good for you and they're in your best interest. So I'm going to start with the quote for today, and there are several questions in this quote. It's quite lengthy. So this is also going to serve as your self-care check-in series of questions. So here we go. The idea of giving ourselves what we want and need can be confusing, especially if we have spent years not knowing that it is okay to take care of ourselves. We ask ourselves, what do I need to do to take care of myself today or for this moment? What do I need and want to do? What would demonstrate love and self-responsibility? Do I feel anxious and concerned about a responsibility I've been neglecting? Then perhaps I need to let go of my fears and tend to that responsibility. Have I been working too hard? Maybe what I need to do is take some time off and do something fun. Have I been neglecting my work or daily tasks? Then maybe what I need to do is get back to my routine. There is no recipe, no formula, no guidebook for self-care. We each have a guide, and that guide is within us. We need to ask the question, what do I need to do to take loving, responsible care for myself? Then we need to listen to the answer. Self-care is not that difficult. The most challenging part is trusting the answer and having the courage to follow through once we hear it. And there's an affirmation in this quote. Today, I will focus on taking care of myself. And that was written by Melody Beatty in the book, The Language of Letting Go. And you can scroll back in the video if you want to hear that reading one more time or multiple times. And one of the things that really helps me with this, and I didn't come up with this, this is something I've heard many people talk about, and that is the concept of future you, or in my case, future Lieu. So that could be Lieu tomorrow, Lieu next week, Lieu a month from now. In the case of retirement savings planning, that would be 70-year-old Lieu, 90-year-old Lieu. That's what we can think about. So just ask yourself, what would myself tomorrow, myself next week, myself next month, or many years down the road, what would that person thank me for having done today? So what I did today is I came up with a couple of lists, and this is kind of a dualistic way to look at it. Things that I really enjoy doing in terms of self-care, or things that I don't enjoy doing, but I know I need to do them for myself. And it's not always that way. I know organization is really a self-care tactic for me. And it can be both, sort of. There are times I don't particularly enjoy it, and there are times that I really love it. So these might not fit in those two opposing categories all the time, but that's just kind of the way I broke it down for today. So I made two lists, and so they're both top 10 lists. So for the self-care practices that I really enjoy and that make me feel good right now, I called that my Insta-Lieu self-care. So could have been today, current, Lieu, any of those things, but I just went with Insta-Lieu. And then I also did my top 10 future Lieu self-care practices. So I'm going to give those to you. And these are not necessarily in an order. I just wrote down 10 things and we'll go through them. So these are my self-care practices that really feel good to me in the moment. So 1, knitting, crafts, painting frames, gold. I really like scrolly frames, and if they're not gold when I find them, I like to paint them gold. Sometimes I'll paint them white, maybe some other colors, but my favorite is to paint them gold. And in terms of a craft project, I have one for next week when we're on spring break that I already have in mind, and I believe I already have the materials gathered for it. So that is one of my top 10 is knitting, crafts, and painting frames gold. Number 2, going to the pool. Really like to do that in the summertime. Number 3, waking up slowly. When I have a day where I don't have to be anywhere at a certain time and I can just enjoy my coffee, enjoy the things I do in the morning, and not feel rushed. That really is a wonderful self-care practice for me. Number 4, reading. This is probably my biggest, most common self-care practice. And even this one can kind of fit in a future Lieu, because sometimes I push myself to read things that might be beneficial to me in the future. Like if it's a book about money that is going to help me when it gets time for me to retire, then I might not particularly enjoy that in the moment, but future Lieu will be glad that I read that. But this one is one that I spend the most time on. This one is one I plan for. I try to find ways to work it into my life even more than it already is. And that's another thing. If you can identify these self-care practices, how can you find ways to work them more into your life? So think about that. Listening to podcasts, and I'm going to give you another bonus here. If you are a podcast listener, or if you aspire to be a podcast listener, there is a search engine specifically for podcasts. It's called Listen Notes, and I will link it in the comments on this post. And you can search for podcasts. I think in a lot of different ways. I'm not a Listen Notes expert, but I know there's this search engine. I've used it for different things to find different podcasts. It's good. So I will link that for you if podcasts are something that you would like to have more of in your life, or if you already have all of the podcast love and you would just like to take it to a higher level. And I also, on podcasts, I'm in a Facebook group about podcasts. If I see maybe a blog post about podcasts we're loving right now, like I will always at least skim those. And it may not be anything that I'm going to like, but I'll at least skim it, because sometimes I'll discover something that I will want to try and may end up just absolutely adoring. So those are some tips about podcasts. And this next one can kind of go either way too, because I know we've talked a lot about social media breaks and how social media can be detrimental and can kind of drag you down. But for me, if I allow myself just some time to scroll through Instagram or Pinterest, that is good for me. It can get out of control, but especially with Instagram, there are people that I like to follow, and I'm always going to want to see what they're posting, either just because I like their kind of style of the way that they post things, or I like things that they have to say, or they're always giving good tips or whatever. That's Instagram. And Pinterest, sometimes I just like to find pretty things to look at, and I will tag, pin things to boards to go back and look at later. Sometimes I just like to go back and look at my boards. You can also use this sort of in an aspirational, inspirational sort of way. If there's something that you aspire to, you can use it like a vision board and kind of try to identify those things that you would like to have in your life, you would like to be, and you can make yourself a vision board. There's all sorts of material online about how to use Pinterest as a vision board. You can check into that. And there's something about Instagram that it just doesn't sort of leave that bad taste in my mouth that Twitter and Facebook can. I don't know what that is, but I do feel that way. So, number 7, I really like working with my family. I enjoy work. It's a big part of my life. I am extremely blessed to have a family that I get along with well. Can't say enough about that. I have a wonderful family, and this was something I identified a few years ago. I really like it when we do projects together. So there are several that we do from time to time, just things that need to be done for our family. And I just enjoy working with my family on projects. So that may be something that applies to you. It may not, but that's a really good one for me. So I really like accomplishing things with my family, things that are going to benefit our family. Number 8, lists. I love lists. And specifically, I do not mind errands. I don't necessarily enjoy doing errands, but I like getting to the end of my, afternoon of errands and having everything marked off. Love that. I really like marking things off of lists. That feels really good. And I'll tell you a funny story. My husband and I were moving one time, and we had gotten moved, and he's responsible for our Netflix subscription. And he is, I don't know if y'all could tell from our workout exercise video, but he's pretty opposite from me. I mean, it's definitely a situation where we complement each other, and our characteristics really work together well, if that makes sense. So I'm sure you could tell, I'm the rigid type A, have a watch, have a planner, have a schedule, have a list person. And he is so much more fun than I am, and spontaneous, and that's just him. He's charismatic. That's just him. So he does not particularly enjoy all of those structured ways of life. He likes to benefit from them, but he is not ever one that will necessarily implement that. But he appreciates that I do that in our life. So anyway, I had this long list of things that we needed to do for the move. And one thing was we need to get on Netflix. I'm struggling with this pen today, y'all. I think I've dropped it a couple of times. Needed to get on Netflix and change our address. That was when they were still mailing us things. We were still on the get the discs in the mail thing. We're team streaming now. But anyway, we needed to get online and change our address on our Netflix account. So he was sitting at his computer, and I asked him to do it. He took care of it right then. And I said, hey, it's on my list. Do you want to mark it off the list? And he said, I do not care about that. So clearly that did not give him the same charge to mark something off the list that it did me. But that's something you should know about yourself. If you like lists, if you like to mark things off the list, that is something good to know about your own personality. So number 9, I like learning new things, and specifically what I really like is figuring out ways to apply that new knowledge, and maybe in sort of unconventional ways. I like to be in situations where we need something done and I can think, oh, I saw a YouTube video about that, or oh, I know how to do that in Excel, or oh, I know the trick in Gmail of how to do that. I like having that knowledge and having situations where I can apply it. And my number 10 is I like to do puzzles. So that could be jigsaw puzzles, could be a crossword puzzle. I like puzzles. So those are my top 10 Insta-Lieu self-care practices. So now moving on, my top 10 future Lieu self-care practices, things that future Lieu down the road will look back and thank current Lieu, today Lieu, April Fool's Day Lieu, thank her that she did those things. So number 1, and again, not in necessarily a, this is truly the tip top number 1 order. And I actually took a picture of this one. I did it last night, and I took a picture of it and I tweeted it. And it was clean out what I call my filing cabinet, which is basically my purse. All my papers, I just throw in my purse. And so sometimes I need to clean out my filing cabinet. And I started going paperless years and years and years and years ago. And so now I'm to the point where I'm maintaining that system. So I take all the papers out of my purse and I scan them and put them, file them in my electronic files. And so that's my number 1. Cleaning out my file cabinet and scanning all those documents is a future Lieu self-care practice. Number 2, tag my photos. I have all of my photos online and they automatically upload, but sometimes I need to go back and tag them because I want to be able to go into my photo program and type in my husband's name or my brother's name or one of my nieces or nephews' names and find all the pictures that I have of them, because I love to share my pictures online. I love to share them with my family members. I love when we take a picture maybe of one of the kids and there's a picture of me or my brother that those pictures sort of look alike. I love comparing those. So I can only do that if I've put in the prep work to tag all my photos. So that's another one. I don't enjoy doing it at the time. I probably need to do some of that while the schools are closed. Yes, but I am happy that I did it when it comes time to search. So, number 3, future Lieu self-care practice, working on my money. And I don't necessarily dislike working on my money. It's just something that I know I have to sit down and get everything organized. It's just something to be done. And I think some of my dislike comes from thinking that I wasn't good at math when I was younger, which my mom always said was just a confidence problem, that I am good at math. I told you guys in a previous video that that was one of my affirmations for a long time, was I'm not good at money. So I'm sure those ideas are spilling over into feeling like that's a self-care practice that I don't enjoy. Because that's not 100% true that I don't enjoy it. I'm always glad I'm doing it at the time. I'm always certainly glad I've done it in the future when everything's organized. But is it like fun? No. But so that's on my list of future Lieu self-care practices. Flossing. I meant to look this up and I didn't, but I'm sure you can find some articles online that will substantiate this. My grandmother specifically always made it a big deal that you take care of your teeth. Always, always, always. And she spent a lot of money on my particular teeth. My family, my mother spent a lot of money on my teeth. I have spent a lot of money on my teeth. And flossing, we all hear about flossing all the time, about how important it is. Specifically, taking care of your teeth is somehow linked to heart health. So you can look that up. But you're not just taking care of your teeth, you're also hopefully having good practices for heart health. Number 5, drinking water. I've talked many times about how sometimes I have to really make myself drink water. I could actually stand to drink some water right now. So that is another future Lieu practice that I don't particularly enjoy, but I do that to take care of myself. One that we can all experience is exercise. We don't particularly enjoy it at the time, but it is good for our future self. And that's one thing that I think about is above and beyond, you know, how your body looks or losing weight. You are doing good things for, again, your heart, cardiovascular, even for osteoporosis, for your bone health. Those exercise is good for those things. Again, I'm not a doctor, not a physician, but I just know from reading that is the prevailing wisdom, is that exercise is beneficial for those things. And I told you in a previous video that exercise is one of the most recommended interventions for depression. So even if you never get to that, you know, ideal body that you think you would like to have, or if you never, you know, get to your goal weight, you're still doing good things for your body. So don't let yourself get discouraged if the scale is not moving, because you're still doing good things for your body. Okay. Another one is getting groceries. I don't know why this feels not pleasant, but sometimes it does. So I think it's because it's such a multi-step process. Making the list, going to the store, or if you order from a store that lets you pick up, which I do, I'm definitely team click list all the way. And there are several stores that will do that sort of thing. There are people that will deliver groceries to your home. I have not, for whatever reason, that feels a little invasive to me, and I have not tried that, but you know, all those things are out there. So you make the list, you go pick it up, you order it, you put it away, food prep, you know, all those things ahead of time, that any of those things that you do with groceries. I don't particularly enjoy those in the moment, but I'm glad that I did it when it comes time to make meals. Another one, food related, is cook once, eat twice. So batch cooking. If you can cook twice of something, or 2 times of something, or 3 times of something, and freeze it, that is something that future you will thank you for. And just an example of how I do this, I'm always, now that my mind is kind of programmed that way, I'm always looking for ways to do that. So one example is if you cook a big thing of chili, and as long as it doesn't have something, which normally chili doesn't, but as long as it doesn't have something like dairy, milk, cheese, cream, eggs, those kinds of things, if it doesn't have any of those things are pretty easy to freeze. So I usually, since there's only 2 of us, I usually end up cooking twice or 3 times the amount of chili, usually just twice, that I actually need. So cook the chili the one time, and then put it in, I double bag my Ziploc bags, freezer bags, invest in some freezer bags or containers for your freezer. That will be a benefit to you, future you. And so then I'll freeze the second half of it. My grandmother was a champion freezer, and I didn't understand it until I got older, and now I totally get it, and I'm all about making 2 or 3 times of something and freezing it. So cook once, eat twice. And I did a whole Pinterest board on cook once, eat twice. And it's not, I don't have a ton of recipes there, but I'm always kind of looking at my recipes and how can I, even if it's just cooking part of it to freeze, and then that part's already done and I can just bring it out and do the rest of it. So cook once, eat twice. Putting my calories and recipes into MyFitnessPal. I do track my calories on MyFitnessPal, and it's so much easier if it's things that if you eat a lot of the same things all the time and you have them saved in there, that's good. You can, on the actual desktop version of MyFitnessPal, you can take your recipes and paste them in there and it will calculate your calories. That is something that I have to really get myself motivated to do, but once I've done it, I always feel glad about it, because then I can just select that meal, put it on my calories for the day, it's done. Instead of trying to go in and enter every ingredient. That is, who has time for that? Not this girl. So putting calories and recipes into MyFitnessPal. And another tip from a nutritionist that I talked with, and I don't know how many of you all may have this available, but if you have at your office access to a registered dietitian, I know in jobs that I've worked in before, my employer would have a contract with a registered dietitian, and every once in a while I would just call them and we would either sit down in person or we would sit down over the phone, and we would just kind of do a consult about, what my goals were and what I was trying to do. And she would give me some tips. I got a really great roasted Brussels sprouts recipe from the registered dietitian one time, and it helped me work more vegetables into my diet. So that's another tip. If you have access to a registered dietitian, sometimes they'll go to the grocery store with you. You should be all about that. You should look into that. That will be something that is helpful to you. And my last one is vacuuming out my car with the Shop Vac. I like a clean car. I'm one of those people that takes all the garbage and things that don't need to be in the car out every single day. Some things stay in there, but if it's like wrappers or whatever, I take all that stuff out. But sometimes my carpets get really, have a lot of rocks in there or dirt or whatever, and I don't particularly enjoy vacuuming it out with the Shop Vac, but I'm always glad I did it. So those are my top 10. So another question for you is, for those future you tasks, is there a way to eliminate barriers and make it easier? So I'm going to give you an example. If one of your future you tasks is thank you notes, which I particularly enjoy, but you may not. Most people do not. If you do not enjoy writing your thank you notes, this is a tip from my grandmother. She had a lot of good tips. She's a smart lady. I'm giving you a lot of them today. Granny Ann knew a thing or two, for sure. If you do not particularly like your thank you notes. And also shout out to my mom, because she was the one who always made us write our thank you notes. And that is something, pro tip, people don't do that anymore. So that is a way for you to, number one, the biggest benefit is express your gratitude to people, which is good for you also. But number two, if you want to be remembered by people, write your thank you notes, because a lot of people don't do it. And people enjoy that. That's a really concrete way to bring some joy to people. If all that people have in their mailbox is their bills, and then they get a sweet note from you about something that they did, people really like that. So write your thank you notes. But anyway, in order to make it a little bit less torturous, if you don't enjoy that, here's some ideas. Gather all your materials, and you don't have to do all the thank you notes in one sitting. Okay, so here's a way to break up that task, to do just a little part of it that gets you closer to your goal. So gather all your materials. Gather your cards, gather your stamps, gather if it's for a baby shower, if it's for a wedding shower, if it's an occasion where you got a lot of gifts. Gather, first of all, have somebody keep a list of each gift, who gave it to you, okay? What the gift was, who gave it to you. So get that list together, okay? Hopefully it's been done for you. Make sure if you're throwing a function, or if a function is being thrown for you, ask someone to do your gift list for you. For the most part, we always do that in the South. That's something we do here. So I'm sure they do it in other parts of the country too, but I can only speak for the South. Pen is a problem today. So get all your materials together. Your cards, your stamps, your pens, your list of gifts. Get all that together. That's your step one. If that's all you do in your first thing, you've done well today. Pat yourself on the back. Don't worry about the rest of it until next time, until your next session to prepare to write your thank you notes. Step two, gather all your addresses. So again, if you're planning a wedding, make yourself some sort of document. For me, what I did is an Excel spreadsheet. We also, in our family, write thank you notes for funerals. People bring food to the funeral home. We thank them for that. People send flowers. We thank them for that. There's a lot of things in a funeral that we, in our particular family, do thank you notes for. So if you have an occasion like that, make yourself a list of everybody you want to thank, everybody that did something. Get their address, put their address on that list. And once the occasion's over, don't get rid of it. And you can also be sure, just as a practice, that you're keeping people's addresses updated, so that this is not such a torturous step and you already have it, and you can just do that in your phone. If you don't want to do a spreadsheet, but you want to keep everybody's addresses in your phone, you can do that. I had another thought about that. But yeah, get yourself the addresses of everybody. Oh, and the tip for the funeral: when people bring things to the funeral home, to the church, whatever, flowers, you don't even have to be making yourself a written list. I've done it before as just a note in my phone where I said such and such brought this. This is their name. This is what, sort of like a short description if it was flowers or whatever. Or you can if it's flowers, you can take a picture of the arrangement, take a picture of the card that comes from the florist, and then those two are together. And then you know what you're thanking someone for, and you have a picture in your mind, because especially during those kinds of times, y'all, it can be such a blur, and you might think you're going to remember, but you're probably not. So that's step two, gather your addresses for your thank you notes. Step three, write the notes. And even if it's a huge task to write the notes, you can save addressing the envelopes for later. Break that down like that. And then last is to take them to the post office. So if it's a huge job, don't think about it as having to do it all at one time. Break it down into steps, and that will make it more tolerable if you don't enjoy doing it. So that's just an example. Another tip for you is, my husband and I refer to this as a performance bonus, okay? You could call it a reward, whatever. But we distinguish it from a bribe. So a bribe you get before you ever do the task, okay? So you say, if maybe to a kid, if you'll I'll give you, I'll let you eat 5 jelly beans right now if you'll go clean your room. So you're going to give them the jelly beans first, and then you're going to have trust and faith that they're going to go clean their room. That's a bribe. And I'm not saying bribes are always, just think about that. For the most part, they're probably not beneficial, but there may be times when I'm not making a judgment. It's a safe space. Performance bonus, on the other hand, is that you complete the task and then you receive whatever it was. Just like at work. You work, you meet your goals, you get a bonus at the end of the year. It might be a check, it might be some sort of outing that your boss provides, you get a performance bonus. So what we do, especially my husband does not enjoy running errands, so if he's going to accompany me on the errands, I will say, do you need a performance bonus? And it's usually ice cream, Starbucks, something like that. Just a little something at the end. When it's something that maybe we're both not particularly looking forward to doing, we might reward ourselves with a performance bonus afterwards. So, can you reward yourself with a performance bonus for something you don't want to do? Think about that. And maybe identify some not food-based performance bonuses. Might also be a good idea. So, we're coming to the end. This is a longer staffing today, but we're almost there. So, 4 laughs. And I realized yesterday I didn't do the quote. I'm not sure I did the self-care check-in question, but I posted the quote later, so it's all okay. And I probably ask a question sometime in between there, but it's fine. Everything's fine. So, today, I think I'm hitting all my objectives that I usually give you. But here we go. For laughs. In terms of things that future you will thank you for. This is a book that I enjoyed. It was one of my favorite books from when I was a kid. It's called No Baths for Tabitha. Okay. And I remember this book, and several years ago I decided I wanted it. Again, I wanted to have a copy of it, and I looked for it, and I think somewhere online it was selling for like $200. Did not do that. But anyway, I finally found it on a book website that I use, and it was, just a few dollars to get this. So that made me happy. So No Baths for Tabitha. So what I'm going to share with you for laughs, because this book makes me laugh, is a lady named Granny Goose who reads stories on YouTube. And I'm going to share with you Granny Goose's video of her reading No Baths for Tabitha. So that's going to be for laughs. And your song of the day is Connie Ray Bailey, and it's called Put Your Records On. And it's just sort of a feel-good, there are some good self-care messages in there. Just watch the video, listen to the song, maybe look up the lyrics. It's a good self-care song. And it's something that is pleasant to my particular ears. I like it. Sounds good. Okay. So, Connie Ray Bailey, Put Your Records On. All right. So, this has gone long. I appreciate your time and attention. And if all hearts and minds are clear, I'll see you all tomorrow for our last self-care staffing before we take a break for Friday, April 3rd, and then April 6th through the 10th while I'm on spring break. Again, I'm not going to do videos during that time, but we'll be back on Monday, April 13th. So, y'all have a good day. Take care.